my Kenvians, and welcome to episode 16 of Discovering Steven Universe. Today the episode I'm going to be talking about is Steven the Sword Fighter, which, after watching it, is kind of a misleading title, like probably the most misleading of all the episode names so far. But I will say that this episode... I don't even know how to describe it yet. I know how I feel about the episode, but we'll get around to that here in just a few. But as always, let's start with some of my favorite parts about this episode. I'm amazed at how many, favorites and even sometimes negatives I can find in an 11-minute episode. Or I guess maybe it's a little bit longer, but 11-minute episodes, and they fit so much in. And that just really speaks for the show in and of itself. But I'm going to refer to this episode in particular with my favorite parts. Starting with number 1, movie night. Or that's what I called it anyway. During the little introduction of the episode, where Steven and the Crystal Gems are all watching this anime. I think it was like The Lonely Blade or something like that. It's like very anime-esque, and definitely had a lot of the attributes and I can't think of the right words. But it was very, very clearly anime that they were watching, and I just loved how Steven was so enwrapped in it, and he was, talking about what they were watching in the same way that, a lot of us fans of different shows will talk about something while we're watching it. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people enjoy reaction videos, I believe. Yeah. But just the movie night aspect was a lot of fun. I found it really cute. And then of course it ended with Pearl saying that she would show Steven how to sword fight sometime, and he's just like, he gets the stars in his eyes, and it's just like makes her look at him, and it was just hilarious. But moving on from there, my second favorite part has to be Hologram Pearl. And Hologram Pearl was cool, but I guess more than that even is the entire scene, the little battle scene between Pearl and Hologram Pearl, or Holo Pearl, however you want to refer to it as. But just that entire segment is so well done. It is so well choreographed as far as the animation goes. And just the idea that Pearl is able to create... Did I say purple? I meant Pearl. Pearl is able to create this hologram image of her that is essentially a robot. It's artificial intelligence with very limited intelligence. But I just found that to be really... that entire scene was just absolutely amazing. And then Hologram Pearl in and of itself, as the episode continued, was just, it was the source of, a lot of laughs. Steven's attempts to make the hologram act more like Pearl, failing quite miserably. And then all of a sudden, just, it turns into this force of darkness that we saw just the slightest moment of, when something happens that is actually my third favorite part of the episode. And it's weird to say this is my favorite, but still, the moment when Pearl dies, or it looks like she dies, because I just remember watching this episode, and all of a sudden, I had a feeling that, the droid would probably, slash Pearl or something like that. But she just got stabbed right through the stomach. And in that moment, I remember just being in shock watching this. I got chills all over me, because the way that they changed the animation or the drawing for Pearl, she looked really disheveled and it looked in pain, even though she was talking it's okay, it's no big deal. And then she just poofed away. So that scene right there took me by complete surprise. And that actually brings us to my fourth favorite part of the episode, which is we learn what happens to damaged gems, or I guess gems when they fall in combat. They don't die per se, or maybe they can, I guess, if the gem itself is destroyed. But kind of like how the monsters that they fought, the ones that have gems, the way that the monster itself will disappear, and then they'll take the gem and bubble it away. That's the way it works for them as well. So if they get damaged, or they get hurt in battle and they have to retreat, or it's like their physical body can no longer live, that they'll retreat into their gem, and then there's like a recharging period, essentially. So I found that really interesting. So, but that does raise one question, and maybe it's one that will happen sometime, that'll get answered sometime in the future, but I can't help but wonder how it would be possible for a gem to die. Like, again, would it have to be where the gem itself is destroyed? Or, I mean, that's really the only idea I can come up with. But then again, in previous episodes, they've referred to Steven getting his gem from his mother. But if that's true, then I don't know. I don't know. It's like, I try to think about that, and it just kind of, like, theories pop up in my head, but it's just a little bit too maybe complicated for me to even really perceive at this point, until I get more information on the show, and more information about the characters. But okay, moving on from there, my fifth favorite part of this episode was when Amethyst swallows one of the floating clouds. And really all of the scenes with her in them afterward. It's like she swallows them and all of a sudden it's just like, poof, big balloon Amethyst. I mean, that's really all I can say about it. It's hilarious, and it's one of my favorite aspects of this episode by far, just because of the pure comedic value that comes out of it. But okay, moving on to my sixth and final favorite part of this episode. It has to be Steven's lesson, or the lesson that Steven learns in the end. And that is, he needs to be patient, wait for the, perfect opening. It's like, and that's how he's able to defeat Hologram Pearl, is he waits and he bides his time until he's able to put in his own strike. And he even says that he's learned some things, but then all of a sudden Pearl finally does come back and he's like, never mind, and he goes on. But even though, if there's one thing, well, one of many things that I've learned about this show, it's that, yes, Steven is very childish. He's very much a young kid, and that's the way he's portrayed in the show. So even though his attention was quickly changed, and he was just like, yay, Pearl's back, and, he went to hug her, seemingly forgetting the lesson he learned, I have a feeling that's something that's going to be kept up in continuity. Like, any of the lessons that Steven learns over time will build up in his character building. Just because that's, from everything I can tell, that's a consistent theme in the show so far, is that the personalities, as they change, however so subtly, it compiles within each character and the show, really, as it goes along. So I don't think that lesson was completely lost, although, again, his childish mindset, or his not even childlike, but the child's mindset that he has, immediately turn his attention to, yay, Pearl's back! But okay, moving on from there, it is time to talk about my annoyances, and really there's only one. I was going to say that I found the floating cloud to be an annoyance, because it's just like, it kind of appeared out of nowhere when they went to the area where Pearl did the sword fighting with Hologram Pearl. And then it just, like, Amethyst kept it around and rode around on it the entire time until she swallowed the cloud. But I can only assume that Amethyst just got the cloud when they were in the battlefield. It seemed to be surrounded by clouds, so it's probably in the sky. So yeah, so that's not an annoyance anymore, just kind of a weird, okay, that kind of came out of nowhere for me. But my actual annoyance with this episode is, so we have the time span that goes from the moment that Steven says, it's like, how long will it take? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? And then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks later. And that entire time, the Hologram Pearl has been underneath a blanket, or a sheet or whatever, doing nothing, saying nothing, and it's not until later that it actually starts to move around, you know, by Steven's bidding. But then after that, like, even after I'm pretty sure he says no when it asks for a challenge, and then he puts a sheet over it, but it doesn't stop. So my annoyance is that the hologram did nothing at all for 2 weeks. Is it just because it was left alone until Steven started bothering it? Or is there just kind of a logic gap there? I don't know. It could very well be that's because no one messed with it at first. I don't know, but, you know, just at the current time, that's an annoyance for me as far as this episode goes. Now, those of you that have seen the episode, please do let me know some of your favorite parts of this episode, as well as any negatives and annoyances you might have seen yourself. Because although I only had one, you may have had more annoyances, because a lot of things, again, come out of this 11-minute long episode, each 11-minute long episode. But moving on from there, it is time for my track of the episode, and really, there's two. Now again, I don't have the song names, obviously, although someone did comment me a link to the official soundtrack, so I may hopefully be able to actually get the song names in some of the future episodes. Please do hold on for that. But as far as my tracks of the episode, there were two, and, you know, ironically enough, I suppose, both of them have to do with battles. The duel music when Pearl is sword fighting with the Holo Pearl was just, I absolutely loved that music. It wasn't too intense. It honestly felt like truly appropriate battle music for Pearl, especially in a situation like that where, you know, the two fighters are essentially evenly matched, and it's not like a fight to the death or anything, despite what happens to Pearl. And then my second track of the episode has to be when the hologram attacks Steven. Now that's the dark, foreboding, intense music that, you know, just it really gets your adrenaline going. Like, that's the kind of music you could be listening to and, you know, at a gym working out or something like that, and it's the kind of music that when that comes on, you get this burst of energy that just makes you push even harder for that time span, whether it's just 10 seconds or 30 seconds or an entire minute. And it's just, overall, I just have to say, I really do love the music in this show. Those of you may remember, I didn't care for, like, the intro music at first, or I think I may have commented on that, but it definitely grew on me, and just from there, the music in general for this show is just, I absolutely love it. I'll probably end up buying the official soundtrack at some point. Alright, but moving on from there, oh, and again, if you have any other tracks that occurred throughout the episode that caught your ear, I keep wanting to say caught your eye, but that's not possible because it's music. Anyway, please do let me know in the comments down below. Now, moving on from there, I do have a quote of the episode, and it's just the simplest, silliest thing I could find. And there were actually quite a few pretty good quotable lines in this episode, but the one that just got me going was right at the end when Pearl does reappear, and she says, "I don't even want to know what happened to you," to Amethyst, because, you know, she's on a string and still in her cloud blown up form. "I got hit by airplane!" That line is just phenomenal. I absolutely love it, and it's just the way the voice actor said it. It just the everything about that moment was just perfect for me, and that's why, for me, it's the quote of the episode. Obviously, like I've said with the others, if you have any of your own, please do let me know. And before I finish up here and get into my overall thoughts, I do have a theory about this episode, and I guess the Crystal Gems as a whole. Now, when Pearl returned, I did notice that her outfit had changed. I believe it was, at first, she had like the orange tutu, I think it is, or just like, you know, the orange, like, you know, very short skirt, however, whatever the word for that is. But when she came back, that was more the color of her leggings, I believe it was, and then she had this orange wrap around her wrist, around her waist. And again, this is just a theory. If any of the other gems get damaged, I guess I'll figure out whether this is true or not. But my theory is that crystal gems change their appearance based on where they are damaged. And in a way, even though it's a wrap around her waist, I mean, it could be seen as a bandage almost. Like, you know, she got pierced right through the stomach, and the wrap is exactly where, or it covers the area where she got stabbed. So, I mean, that's just a guess on my part. Again, I may find out if Amethyst gets hurt at some point, which apparently happens a lot according to her, and or possibly even Garnet. So I don't want to say I'm looking forward to that, but I'm interested to see whether or not that theory might come true. If that's not really a huge spoiler or anything, I'd probably be okay with you all revealing that, whether or not that theory is true. But if it really bears any plot-sensitive information, like revealing to me whether or not that's true, please do hold back on letting me know. But okay, as for my overall thoughts on this episode, I honestly think that this may be, this is another one that's gotten thrown into my pile of favorites. It's one of those episodes that, although certain episodes are, you know, they're a little bit weaker than others, is like, the good ones keep upping their game as it goes along. And this is just another great episode to go along with some of the ones that have come before. And I'm only 16 episodes in, and the first season has 52 episodes, my god. But yeah, just as for this episode, I absolutely love it. If anyone was ever shown, like, if you had to pick top 3 early episodes to show someone, like, if they didn't want to go in exact, if they didn't want to go episode by episode, which they should do, but I'm just saying, I would say that Stephen the Sword Fighter would probably be the third, or basically the last one of the early episodes that person should probably see. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, like I mentioned before, if any of you all have some other thoughts about this episode you would like to share, please do leave them in the comments down below. Really looking forward to what you have to say about Stephen the Sword Fighter. And coming up next, on the next Discovering Stephen universe, will be Lion 2, the movie. Or something along those lines. But yeah, Lion 2, the movie. It should be interesting. But as always, everyone, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time, again, on the next Discovering Stephen universe. And until then, Alonzi!